Well, the portal doesn't officially open until December 9th, but the Bruins are already looking at some major subtractions. TJ Harden and Justyn Martin of potentially heading to the portal. What?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. Somewhat breaking news edition. Zach Anderson Yoxsimer with you guys. Since I've recorded my last podcast or two, the portal action is moving. UCLA and the transfer portal, you would think, all right, it's going to be a week. People are slowly doing things, right? It's not until December 9th. Well, the portal doesn't open for a week from now when I post this episode, but UCLA already has a commit in the portal, and their quarterback with the most experience and their presumed starting running back have all decided to bolt. In the span of a few hours since posting the podcast, all of a sudden, I've read the LA Times, I've seen Bro Report talk about this, is posted on social media. UCLA is losing their quarterback. Justyn Martin has posted on his social media, I believe his Instagram, and said he wants to go elsewhere. And then TJ Harden, obviously frustrated with the lack of a run game. That's not going to help UCLA in 2025. What does this mean about what these Bruin players think, not only one, about the DeShaun Foster program, but two, I think more importantly, what does this mean about Eric Bieniemy, right? Obviously, much maligned between you guys. UCLA could have done a lot more last year, I thought, with Chip Kelly's offense in this year's offense. And then too much, with too many decent pieces on the offense, did UCLA fall short of scoring big points? What does that mean? TJ Harden was the clear-cut starter for next year. He's not being challenged. So unless somebody's throwing him a lot of dough to be like, hey, we got a better offensive line, a better scheme, we're going to feed you the ball, gone, right? Then you got Justyn Martin. A little bit more of a battle for him, right? There wasn't a lot of people with experience. Obviously, the portal is a different beast. And then for Justyn Martin, it's like, hey, the biggest competition he has currently would have been an incoming freshman, Bieniemy, with him not playing his last year of high school football, coming into a very complex system to learn. You would have thought Justyn Martin would have been the guy in clearly to win that job. But no, now you're going to listen to what I'm about to say and you're going to go crazy. What if UCLA, I'm throwing this out there, goes after a Miller Moss, who just literally went in the transfer portal, was 2 weeks away from playing UCLA in a USC uniform, and is going to utilize his last season in the portal elsewhere. And in this day and age, it's not crazy to see guys go from UCLA to SC or SC to UCLA. It's not that crazy. But beyond that, the starting quarterback situation, where I've somewhat proclaimed earlier in the year, it looks like maybe it's Martin has some potential. He played 3 years and had to sit behind multiple guys, couldn't beat Garbers, and the opportunity when he still has multiple years of eligibility in front of him, he decides to go elsewhere. And there are guys who walked on senior day that still have another year of eligibility in the UC that they could play for UCLA, right? I know Logan Moya has one. Schlesinger's a big one. Some of those guys could go pro. J. Michael Sturdivant. Some of these guys could go pro, or some of these guys are going to get the bag thrown at them in NIL dollars. Probably big promises from opposing coaches that say, we're going to use you better on the offense, which is not hard to say considering you look at UCLA's offensive statistics this year, where they're one of the worst offenses rushing offenses, or the worst at converting in the red zone. And it's not like there's a real opportunity for them. Like, yes, they have a bright spot, but they're still growing pains if you give the reins to a true freshman. They're still growing pains if you gave it to Justyn Martin. But hey, once you want to get paid and get playing time right now, I guess it's not at UCLA. Now, there are things to understand about the portal. Coaches do tell guys, get out. All right. I don't know if that's the case in this situation. I'm not sure DeShaun Foster or Eric Bieniemy are sitting there and saying, get out. It happens in basketball. Come on. Tell me Mick Cronin didn't go tell the basketball, some of those guys to, sorry, not sorry. You're probably not playing last year. I just terribly mishandled freshman recruiting, so get out. That's probably a harsh way of what Mick Cronin could have done nicely, right? There's no reports of that, but that's how it goes behind the scenes. Where coaches, even their best players from the year before, they will tell them to leave. If it's a personality thing, if they don't think they're too efficient, that happens. So that is a realistic possibility. But when you have other things that need to work on, hey, we have a potential quarterback. We have a starting running back that we should have utilized a lot more last year in 23 when Harden was splitting carries with Carson Steele. And this year when it seemed like he was the clear-cut leading rusher, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, why isn't UCLA running more effectively? Well, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder until UCLA picks it up in the portal, because that is some big news. You're losing your clear-cut starting running back and your clear-cut starting leader in the clubhouse for a quarterback. How much of that has got to be pinned on Eric Bieniemy as the hire for the offensive coordinator? How much is that his fault for UCLA not just exploding in the running game? When Chip Kelly in the years prior would pride himself on an offensive line that could run the football, passing came second. This year, they relied on the arm of Ethan Garbers, and that's just how the offense is run. And unfortunately, Ethan Garbers is not a Heisman-winning quarterback. He did his fair share behind a poor offensive line, a tough system, a tough scheme to get his teammates to learn, to just simply call out the plays. It took him uttering plays in the bye week, one of many bye weeks UCLA had and many college football had this year, in the mirror to learn it. That's how complex this offense is. From the simplistic Chip Kelly offense that couldn't run the ball against the Michigan defense at home and win a game. So there you have it. It's shocking, to say the least. That means the Bruins, who already have Jadon from Arkansas, committed as a grad transfer coming to UCLA. So the Bruins already made work happen in the portal. They already have taken the former Michigan State DB's coach, and I cannot forget, too, Collins H.M.Pong's in the portal, too. Like, there's already three guys going. H.M.Pong had the least of the impact of those three Bruins currently in the portal. But there's a report now that UCLA is bringing back a former defensive backs coach to come work in the secondary from Michigan State. They have multiple opportunities to shake up this staff this year, does UCLA. They certainly do. I wouldn't think it's on the need for the defensive end, but obviously UCLA, when they're bringing back a former assistant, Justyn Martin, and there's an opportunity where one of the guys he recruited to Michigan State to East Lansing is like a 4-star DB. And what does UCLA need? More players in the secondary, more players on defense, anywhere. Anybody on defense, UCLA is going to need him. He committed to Michigan State, decommitted, and there's a possibility that this dude coming to UCLA already has, former ties in the SoCal recruiting region from being a former UCLA assistant, could maybe switch this guy's commitment to UCLA. It's tough when you see two offensive starters leave, when you need to improve an offense and completely rebuild defensively. So there is some good news. They have a little bit of some shakeup on the defensive staff. I wonder what that means for the guys who work in the secondary, because they already kind of mixed it up a little bit, but Akaka Malloy wants his own staff. DeShaun Foster wants more of his own staff. And he didn't have that much time to truly build. He completely changed the recruiting landscape. UCLA already has a top 40 class, top 35. Is that going to be enough to compete and improve from 5-7 to a winning Big Ten bowling club, to a top tier competing club in the Big Ten, to a CFP? Because there's different levels in the UCLA rankings, right? Next year's schedule, I wouldn't think is too crazy. You got New Mexico. Utah had a terrible end to the season. They don't know if they're going to have a 20th year of Cam Rising or not. UNLV looks like a tough situation, because are they going to be as good next year? They were very good this year. And if that's the toughest game UCLA has to play on the schedule next year, that's not the same as going to LSU or playing Indiana, Hawaii, and Penn State all in a row. That's not the same. UCLA's schedule in the non-conference is a lot easier right now. Of course, there's a lot of changes in the portal that are going to happen for all these teams, but the schedule isn't going to lend itself to be as brutal as it was in a significant stretch from September through October. It's just not. Now, there could be some surprise contenders like Indiana was this year, but that is what Curt Cignetti represents, an opportunity with a true portaling season, a renewed vigor, just some hope and support, that a team that does, a school that does not support football like most, can become a national headline. And that is what UCLA needs to become. Now, they're not going to become Indiana overnight, and Deshaun Foster's not loud and brash, like Kurt Cignetti is. He's not going to go on the mic and say USC sucks and so does Dan Lanning. That's not where it's going to go. But there's a lot of West Coast schools that with some quick hiring have made a great situation into a bad one. You look at Brett Brennan in Arizona, or then you look at Kenny Dillingham, who basically made fun of UCLA going swinging gate in 23, beat UCLA at Arizona, with Arizona State, and this year has his team that was one of the worst in college football and now turned them into a Big 12 contender in year one. Of course, Deion Sanders has a different type of hype with him, but he took a terrible program and took them in competition for a Big 12 championship. And now the situation's different for DeShaun Foster because he was given a terrible, terrible place to start in the later part of the season when UCLA let Chip Kelly go. This is the domino effect still falling because of that. But now he's got to pick up the pieces, and this is where DeShaun Foster is going to make his money. This is the year where we're going to learn if this program crumbles because of the terrible mismanagement from 2023, or if it can rise from the ashes and say, yes, we would have loved to have these guys who can still return to UCLA, by the way. Remember, last year, they had Keegan Jones in the portal commit somewhere else, and then he still came back to UCLA to finish out his career. Toia, right before the spring game, was maybe on his way to Texas, who is currently battling for an SEC championship, and he said, no, I'm not doing that. So these guys could still come back. Doesn't mean they're leaving, but it's unlikely. Now, DeShaun Foster has had the love of the locker room last year. What's the difference with him as the head of the program now? These next few weeks specifically, with the shifting windows of the portal season, will be important to UCLA's future. Are they going to be the running joke of the Big Ten? Because if you don't succeed next year, how are you going to convince guys to come in year 3, year 4 of DeShaun Foster? And they just extended the UCLA AD, Martin Drummond. So that's a relationship that's going to continue to go, and they want to build. There were some positives this year. But when some of the best parts of building a program are leaving after year 1, unless they're getting a fat NIL deal, which could happen for Harden, but he's got to be completely frustrated with how the UCLA offense utilized him this year. I would be too. If you had much better numbers the year before, and then the rushing offense is literally a joke this year as it was. Literally a joke. It's just frustrating. But there is the positive news, right? They got an assistant that could lead to a commitment in the secondary with a former Michigan State DB decommitting, who is committed because of this new UCLA assistant. Are there more shakeups of guys creating their own staff? Yes, there is positives. But UCLA has to navigate the portal season because it's coming for everybody. It opens December 9th, and they got to find a quarterback. Dare I say Miller Moss? Dare I say, maybe, remember, Matthew Sluka's still out there, right? You still got the kid who went to UNLV and had them potentially batting Boise State for a group of 5 bid, like they are right now in the CFP in the Mountain West Championship game. Sluka's still out there. He wanted a fat NIL deal. I'm not sure if you want that type of guy coming to your program after he wanted a lot of money, but there are still multiple options out there. But the Bruins have to be willing to commit. The NIL collective has to be willing to commit. And if they're not, then UCLA is going to fall short, and you're going to see a lot of guys leave, and that's going to tell you a lot about how the Bruins felt in this offensive scheme last year. They're going to be like, DeShaun's the guy, or we loved him, but it wasn't the right hire, which I feel like a lot of you already feel that sentiment. Yikes. Not a way you want to start the portal season. But at least, unlike last season, UCLA has a lot of time to recover. Will they? Only time will tell, which is why you should like, comment, subscribe here for Locked On UCLA. We'll talk about everything when it comes to the portaling season. You might be caroling. We'll be talking and tackling everything that happens in the portal. It's getting crazy, and we haven't even officially begun. All right? Let's get an A clap because that was a little wacky. All right? Actually, I'm all over the place. This is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Before we get to the A clap, let's talk to you about FanDuel. Because if you're a new customer and you want to join FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, just bet a $5 bet. And if you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. Again, if you're a new customer, it's got an app that makes it easy to find all the things you need, whether it's live stats, live play-by-play, betting all in the same place. When you want to bet NFL or more, go to FanDuel.com. New customers, you bet that $5 bet. You win, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com, make every moment more. and an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, it's only early in the week in December. We just turned the calendar month. The season ended, and man, things have changed immediately. So let's get a quick 8 clap and end this bad boy. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Man, it's only getting started. So stick here with us. Thanks for tuning in. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.